Busch Gardens Williamsburg is a park that just seems to do so much right. The park itself is beautiful, the shows and the food are great, and the rides at this park are just top notch. If there's one word to describe this park, it would be progressing. Each new attraction changes the park in one way or another, and within the past decade, the park has solidified its spot as one of the best theme parks in the country. But is this going to last? To put it in perspective, the park looks very different than it did only a few years ago. This begs the question of, have the recent additions been good to this park? Or is this park shying away from the things that brought it so much character in the first place? In this video, we're going to do a deep analysis of this park and answer the question of, is Busch Gardens Williamsburg heading in the right direction? And if not, what can they do to get back on track? So right off the bat, if you've been watching this channel, you'll know that I really like this park. So much so that you may think that I might be a little biased about it. But for this video, I want to assure you that I will be trying as best as I can to save my personal tastes and opinions for only the parts that I feel absolutely necessary. So let's get started. Within the past 5 years, a few major events occurred that could possibly change the trajectory of this park forever. And we'll start off with the first one. And this is a shifted focus away from themed attractions. Busch Gardens is arguably one of the best themed parks in the country, with each section of the park having its own distinct theme and original feel. For a while, this park was the most themed park outside of Disney and Universal, and I guess you could still make that argument to this day. Escape from Pompeii, Verbolten, Curse of Dark Castle, and the Battle for Ire are all heavily themed story-based attractions. However, 2 out of the 4 have sketchy futures, to say the least. Curse of Dark Castle closed a while ago, and the Battle for Ire's fate is very uncertain. So does this show us that Busch Gardens is leaving theming in the dust? Well, it's certainly not a good sign. Another factor that points to this theory is Pantheon. Pantheon is a super cool, fast-paced thrill coaster, so obviously it's not expected to have theming during the ride. But with that being said, the station of the coaster could have been themed with Roman architecture to look like the Pantheon. This wouldn't have been extremely difficult to do and would have improved the presentation of this coaster. Instead, the station just looks like your average coaster station. But with that being said, the sign out front of this coaster looks really cool, so I guess that's something. So Busch Gardens not creating theme stations anymore shows us that they are likely not going to go above and beyond with theming in the future. However, they are not necessarily decreasing. If you think about it, the only coaster in the park to have a heavily themed station is Verbolten, and that's to be expected as it's a themed family coaster. So not overly theming Pantheon Station isn't necessarily bad, but it's also not great. Busch Gardens making the decision to not go above and beyond with theming is likely a financial decision, so we can't be too upset about this, and Pantheon looks to be one of the best coasters ever created, so I'm not complaining. But what about those other 2 rides, Battle for Ire and Curse of Dark Castle? Battle for Ire is currently closed and may never open again, while Curse of Dark Castle is rumored to be turning into a one-of-a-kind indoor family multi-launch motorbike coaster. And right off the bat, that sounds extremely strange. If you don't know, within the next couple of years, Intamin is going to be building a launch motorbike coaster that is rumored to be going in the Curse of Dark Castle show building. The show building itself isn't very big, meaning that the coaster is going to have to rely on a few tricks to enhance the ride experience, but I'm not going to go into that. But there's still one huge question that is left unknown. And that is, will the ride have good immersive theming? Curse of Dark Castle had extremely immersive theming, so ideally this new attraction theoretically should follow in its footsteps. But what if that doesn't happen? Believe it or not, we haven't seen Busch Gardens do a highly themed coaster in over a decade, and this attraction will have a much smaller budget than Verbolten did. I think this attraction will tell us a lot about the future of Busch Gardens, so let me explain. If this attraction is highly themed, and just to be clear, I'm talking about even better than Verbolten level theming, like the most theming in the park level stuff, then the attraction will be a perfect addition to the park, serving as a great stepping stone between Invader and Verbolten, and become a fantastic ride regardless of age. If the ride truly is a smash hit, it will prove that Busch Gardens focusing on coasters is actually a very good thing for the park, and it will show that theming is the way to go. Basically, if Busch Gardens creates a good storyline for this attraction, it will push this mediocre layout into a standout attraction, making the ride much more than just a coaster. On the other hand, if the coaster is poorly themed, it could be the death of theming at Busch Gardens. If the ride isn't as good as Curse of Dark Castle and it's just a coaster inside of a warehouse, it will shine light on the decline of quality within the park. So this will say a lot about the park. Now, to be honest, this is unfortunate, but I will be very surprised if this attraction is indeed as good as Curse of Dark Castle. Usually themed coasters aren't generally as immersive as dark rides, but we'll just have to wait and see. So the verdict is still undecided if the theming aspect of the park is improving or not. But let's look at other aspects of the park. The park itself is definitely growing, and in fact most of that growth has taken place over the last couple of years. But I want to touch on something that isn't getting talked about very much. Busch Gardens Williamsburg has always had a great reputation in the amusement industry. However, since the beginning of the pandemic, their reputation has begun to backslide a little bit. If you don't know what I'm talking about, well, many people feel like the quality of this park has been decreasing with constant budget cuts. In fact, many of the reviews that came out within the last 2 years for the park have been a lot more negative than in previous years. So is this something to worry about? Well, I'd say no. Obviously, many parks have had issues coming out of 2020, and Busch Gardens Williamsburg is still adjusting, so I don't think there's too much to worry about. Now, this next thing that I'm going to be talking about is almost a little bit controversial, so buckle up. And this is the loss of the Busch Gardens atmosphere. Busch Gardens Williamsburg has always had a distinct, authentic feel to it. They've had the perfect mix of aesthetics and rides to create a perfect balance. They've always been known as the world's most beautiful theme park, and it's because of the landscaping and the absence of rides in some areas of the park. But is Busch Gardens losing the thing that made it so special to begin with? Now, I'm not necessarily going to take a side, but some people say that all these ride additions are taking the charm away from Busch Gardens Williamsburg. Here's an example. Let's look at Finnegan's Flyer, one of the park's most recent additions. The part of the park where Finnegan's Flyer is located is one of the most picturesque sections of any theme park ever. The bridge over the river is just beautiful, and to be completely honest, it actually looked much better before Finnegan's Flyer was actually added. Before Finnegan's Flyer, you were immersed walking over the bridge with the beauty, the ambiance, and the music of the Irish section. Now you're greeted by the screams of riders. It doesn't quite have the same effect that it did before. Now, this isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I definitely understand why people are complaining. I hope in the future Busch Gardens remembers what made the park great in the first place, and they continue it. Even though we love coaster additions, we need to remember that this park isn't Cedar Point. In fact, it was never meant to be. It is Busch Gardens Williamsburg, something completely different. I really hope the park doesn't lose focus on why they're great and what made them special to begin with. So I always hate not answering my original question, but I really do think it's too early to tell if they're heading in the right direction or not. I think the next 2 years are going to be crucial for this park. Seeing Pantheon and Curse of Dark Coaster will show us a lot about the future of this park. If they are both successful and maintain the charm of the park, we don't have anything to worry about. However, if they feel cheaply displayed, it could be an indicator that shows us that the park needs to get their act together. But only time will tell what really happens next. So thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe if you want to see content just like this all the time. And comment below about the future of Busch Gardens Williamsburg. What do you think it's going to be like? And do you think Curse of Dark Coaster and Pantheon are going to be successful? This is the Coaster Josh, signing out.